Hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Ray Bradbury, the show here on Let's Talk Entertainment, where since 2018, I've been attempting to locate, read, and briefly review each of the roughly 600 short stories written by the late, great Ray Bradbury. We are up to story number 294. Probably approaching the halfway point. It is hard to say because there's no clear idea of how many stories he actually wrote. It's around 600, so I'm going to be at this project for a long time. But today's story is 294. It is 10 of 21 in his 1997 collection, Driving Blind. It is called Nothing Changes. If you're new to the channel, the way that this works is I do a very brief synopsis of what happens in the story, and then I wrap it up just with a very light analysis of what it all means. I mainly do this for my own entertainment, but it's cool to find out that sometimes others are reading along with me and find these videos to be a little bit useful. All right then, so Nothing Changes. During a rainstorm, a man visits his favorite bookshop. It's on the coast. It's in an interesting position where you can sort of hear and feel shaking in your bones the power of the waves going under you on the pier, but also above you in the storm surge. For some reason, he is browsing the old high school yearbooks when, to his astonishment, he sees somebody's face in a different place in a different time, and he swears it is the spitting image of somebody else he knew in another place in another time. And this sends him on a flurry of searching and discovering. He's looking through all of his yearbooks, and he finds multiple people who is like, yeah, I know this person, I know this face, but in a different time, in a different place. This is from my childhood, not from somebody else's childhood 1,000 miles away. To further test his theory, this research that he's begun accidentally, the bookstore owner suggests, hey, maybe you should find some newer annuals, some newer yearbooks, and find out if this case of these doubles continues on into the future. And after a while, having ordered some of these yearbooks, they begin coming in, he begins searching, and he finds somebody who is about to graduate who shares his face, only they are in Roswell, Nevada. New Mexico. Yes, New Mexico. And so he seeks him out. He shows up at this graduation ceremony, and the young man feels compelled to throw his arms around him and cry, and he swears that he is his father who's been dead for 2 years. He indicates, no, I'm not. I'm not related to you as far as I know. And that's about it. He spends a few seconds sort of theorizing or sort of speculating that perhaps there is some weird genetic conspiracy going on. And wondering if someday we will all look the same, just a handful of unique people, or is it just some mere coincidence, some miracle caused by the tricks of genetics? And it's not really entirely clear what the case might be, and even his theories aren't very sort of clear. Regardless of that ending, which was a little bit weak, it was a fun little story. I've had this thought before myself, and usually it comes as a part of watching movies, and you'll see an old movie and a new movie or a TV show, and it's that looks like so-and-so did 50 years ago when they were younger, and you would swear. So I always joke that there's some secret Hollywood breeding cloning program, and they just keep churning out near copies of old stars, and sometimes they become stars again in their new form, sometimes they don't, but I like to think that there's some weird conspiracy going on where this is happening. More than likely it comes into being because a lot of these people are actually in the same families and stuff, and a lot of times it's just coincidence. And of course there's a lot of hair and makeup going on as well, so that sort of makes it a sort of an unfair comparison. But I also thought that, with the human population being so high, could it be that there's only so many variations on the human form? I think that's a possibility. And then I also was sort of thinking about how in 2025, with all the social media and the facial recognition, that I think that it's more likely than ever that we're going to be able to find our doubles accidentally. You hear about this from time to time, actually, where somebody's face will be incorrectly recognized, like going through airport security, which I think is pretty interesting. But on the whole, and more sort of back to this story, I think it's interesting to think about this. And we've always, I think we think of each other or of ourselves as being unique individuals. And perhaps we are not quite as unique as we think we are, at least not physically. And also, I think that in the end, if I were to sort of interpret this story, I think a lot of it has to do with this man aging and sort of these tricks of fading memory. And you begin to, the way you remember people is different than they actually were. And so there's also this feeling when you grow old that, kids are all the same. So I think there's a little bit of that in there as well. But in terms of the fact that this story does cause me to do a lot of thinking and speculation, it is a good story. But at the same time, it feels a little bit rushed, especially near the end. And I would have liked a more clear theory or series of theories. I don't need the answer spelled out for me, but it was sort of a little bit vague just in the way the whole thing ended. And I would have liked him to have come to some more concrete revelations or no revelations at all. I would have sort of maybe cut out the last couple paragraphs or half a page and just sort of left it with him meeting this kid at the graduation who looked like him. But there you have it. Nothing changes, apparently. Story number 10 of 21 in Driving Blind from 1997. Next time we'll be looking at That Old Dog Lying in the Dust, which brings us to the halfway point of this collection, and only 5 more stories to go before we reach 300 Ray Bradbury reviews overall. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. See you later.